What is going on with my phone, man? Where are my apps? Everything just says Phanta. Alright, let me see what this is about.
5, 4, 3.
You know, I feel like I've expressed my feelings on microtransactions and gacha mechanics a lot. And if you want to be successful in these games, you have to continually put your money in the virtual gacha machines that have no real guarantee of giving you anything. Yeah, but there was one game that made me go against my own rule and play one of them. It's called Draglia Lost. Ever heard of it? It's an action RPG for smartphones only. Nothing strange there, but it does have the unique advantage of being published by Nintendo. Do I have your attention yet? Because it definitely got mine when I saw that, and when I downloaded it and started it up, I was not disappointed. Amazing gameplay, great sound design. I'm kidding, it's a gacha game, the absolute bottom tier of the video game food chain. But unlike some of its contemporaries, Genshin, this one actually has some redeeming qualities. For one, the cast. See, if you didn't know, gacha games or gachapon games live and die on their cast. The characters is what keeps the customers coming back. It's what you spend your money on. So if they're not interesting, then... Luckily, Draglia Lost doesn't have too much to worry about in that department. Of course, the game has all shapes and sizes of cute anime waifus and strong, stoic husbandos. Do people still say that? But putting that aside, the thing that really kept me playing was the decently wide selection of melanated characters. Good, varied melanated characters with interesting designs and unique backstories. Not donut lip Sambo caricatures, and not generic anime characters with a skin color slider move down. The cast is so good, and not just the black characters, all the characters, but the cast is so good that honestly, it made it easy to slog through that gameplay. You know what, let's talk about the gameplay. I wouldn't say it's bad, honestly it's about on par with the other gacha games on the market. Now take what I say with a grain of salt. I only put in a few dozen hours, but with these gacha games you can put in hundreds, even thousands of hours and still not be done with everything. But from what I played, it wasn't that engaging, it wasn't really all that deep, but honestly, I'm just gonna be happy with the fact that we can directly control the character and attack in real time. With most of the gacha games, you can't even do that much. But once I got into this game, I really got into it. There's just something special about it, like it has a special sauce. And I played it a lot. It was extremely fun. The gameplay really started to gel with me and the story was interesting. Every character caught my eye, I wanted to pull for all of them. I loved it. But eventually, I was forced to put it down for a while, a few months, nothing serious, but then I got some more free time again. And I decided I want to re-download one of my favorite mobile games ever. I went into the App Store, and I typed in D-R-A-G. Nothing's there. Let's type out the full title, Draglia Lost. Nothing's there. Oh man, it happened again. Draglia Lost, like many other mobile games, is gone forever. You are unable to download it, and you can never play it again legally. A game so many artists, programmers, sound designers, so many individuals put heart and soul into, it was obvious from every aspect of the game there was real care put into it. A game that despite its flaws was still worth trying, was gone forever. So I was annoyed when I discovered that, but was I mad? No. Was I shocked or surprised? Of course not. I feel like you all know now that I hate mobile games. I've said it multiple times, but I didn't always. There was a time when I played mobile games more than any other type of game combined on any other system. A little bit of it was just not having that many games for my console at the time, but even if I had the library, if I had the games, I think I would have still gravitated to mobile games. I've always loved the design of these games, especially in the early days when the phones were a lot weaker. I've heard a saying before, that limitation breeds creativity. And we definitely used to see that in the smartphone games back then. Nowadays, it seems like all the mobile game developers have kind of just settled on the virtual gamepad, or for the more premium experiences, they expect you to have a Bluetooth controller of your own or some type of phone controller peripheral like a backbone to play with. but in the early days of mobile gaming, it was a lot more experimental. Surprisingly, one of the most experimental mobile games I've ever played ended up being one of the most successful. That game, an eventual franchise, is of course Infinity Blade. Looking at it now, it may not look that special to you, but bring yourself back to 2011. On a small phone screen, this really didn't look that different to this. You know what, let's really bring ourselves back. If you think mobile games are considered casual now, oh buddy, you should have seen how they were treated back then. At least now, gamers understand and recognize there are full, fun game experiences exclusive to mobile. Back then, if you said you were playing mobile games and taking them seriously, you might as well have said you're playing on an old Game Boy or a Tiger Electronic LCD. I had one of these. Yeah, I guess I really am Unk. I used to think the same way about mobile games until Infinity Blade came along. It wasn't the first 3D mobile game, and it wasn't the first action RPG on mobile, but it was one of the first ones to tie everything into a tight, aesthetically pleasing commercial package. And at least for me, the performance on this was very good too. This game maintained its frame rate and didn't lag on an iPhone 4S. That is incredibly impressive. And to really understand the context of why this was so revolutionary, think back. Mobile games up to this point were nothing more than cheap, or preferably free, distractions. Something you play for 10 minutes on the train or before your shift starts at work, and nothing more. So why focus on cinematic camera angles, or a storyline, or secrets, or hidden unlockables? Why have anything like that in the game when it's designed to be disposable? See, there's the problem right there. The games are designed to be disposable. And that's fine. Up to this point in mobile phone history, there weren't really any strong enough phones to do much more than a disposable experience. But with the increased processing power of the iPhones as well as the storage space, it was time to change the perception of mobile games. As I said earlier, Infinity Blade is an action RPG. Well, it's really more like action RPG. The RPG elements are so light and so surface level, it's not even funny. You get XP from winning battles, as you would expect, and that XP goes towards leveling up yourself and your equipment. You level up 4 stats: your health, the power of your shield, your attack power, and your magic. While magic eventually does get more interesting and frankly it gets a lot better, in this game it's pretty close to useless, so that's a useless stat. You know, I almost want to get mad at the lack of choices in the leveling, and then I think about all of the things this mobile game from 2011 accomplished. The fact that it includes RPG mechanics, dozens of pieces of equipment with different effects, elemental effects, branching paths for you to explore, hidden areas and bosses, and even secret bosses. That's amazing by itself. Most mobile games in 2024 don't even give you the amount of content Infinity Blade 1 did. And please don't even get me started on Infinity Blade 2 or 3. Infinity Blade 2 is my favorite mobile game of all time. It's not one of the top ones, it's my favorite. So we'll get to that in its own video. And Infinity Blade 3, while it removes some features that I liked in Infinity Blade 2, it is still probably, objectively, the best game in the franchise. All 3 of these groundbreaking mobile action RPG games are no longer available. Does that seem right to you? Let me put it like this. Genuinely, you can take Infinity Blade 3 and change nothing except the controls. You could drop it on console for $30, and I don't think that would be a bad value. That's how jam-packed and feature-dense these games are. But maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe that size, that density. We'll get to that soon. Moving from one action RPG to a considerably different one. Xenonia 3 is one of the best RPGs the mobile platform has ever produced. In contrast to the more rigid and linear Infinity Blade that's focused on cinematic set pieces, Xenonia 3 focuses on pure chaotic action. You overwhelm your enemies with flashy skills and effortlessly dodge your opponent's attacks. You know, for some reason with this game, I get a similar vibe to Maple Story or Tree of Savior, really any of those Korean MMOs. This game is made by a Korean developer too, huh? You know, I've spent a lot of time talking about old mobile games, and for good reason, but one trend from the past I'm glad is gone for the most part is the shameless copying. Now, don't misunderstand me, the shameless copying still exists on mobiles. Actually, it's still extremely prevalent. In fact, if you go through the free game section, most of those games are just copies of other simple free games. We'll talk about this some other time, but with how lawsuit happy some of these game companies can be, it's kind of amazing that some of those mobile game companies, especially Gameloft, didn't get sued into oblivion back then. A lot of games that went on to become successful mobile franchises started off as completely shameless ripoffs of existing properties. Gangstar is a ripoff of GTA, Modern Combat is a ripoff of COD, Nova is a ripoff of Halo, and I could really keep going, I'm not joking. All of these properties went on to develop their own identities and kind of break away from their ripoff roots, so it's not really a problem, but I thought that was interesting. So Xenonia 3, a Legend of Zelda style top-down RPG with Korean MMO leveling and progression, beautiful art, great music, and an interesting and robust multiplayer I used to play a lot, is no longer available. Thinking back on it, it's hard for me to imagine a time when I wasn't in love with card games, but there was a time like that, and it wasn't that long ago. I spent a long time in my gaming journey actively avoiding any game with card or strategy in its tags. Then one day, I ran into a little game on the App Store called Tekken Card Tournament. And looking at the screenshots, all I could focus on was the graphics, like wow! The game looks exactly like Tekken Tag 2. By the way, this was 2015, so that was the newest Tekken at the time. And I know someone's gonna say that, so sidebar really quick, I didn't go to the arcades in 2015, so I didn't play Tekken 7 in 2015. For me, Tekken 7 came out in 2017 when the console versions came out. I had been blown away with mobile game graphics before, with games like Infinity Blade 1 and 2 and Chaos Rings. We'll touch on that in a different video. But this game truly convinced me that mobile game graphics can match premium console games. Obviously not perfectly, but it's more than close enough. So the graphics hooked me in, but it was the gameplay that kept me playing. The game is sort of complicated, but to try to make it as simple as possible, you start by picking your character. Take a look at this roster really quick. It's kind of skimp, right? They got the Tekken classics, but they're missing all of my favorite characters. But that's okay though. These characters aren't just palette swaps, it's not just for the aesthetic. All of these characters, not only do they have different starting traits, Hwoarang for example has extra damage on his kick attacks, but they all have exclusive cards to them and exclusive attacks that they can do and use. When the battle starts, you have three options. You can focus, which draws a card, you can attack, which uses up all your attack cards, and of course does damage to the enemy depending on the value of the attack card, and you can block, which blocks two of the opponent's attack cards if they're attacking. It's a lot more useful than it sounds, let me say that. There's just so many different builds you can make, there's so many different effects, so many different interactions. Combine that with the starting talents, which can really determine how you make your deck. No two people, even if they use the exact same character, they will not have the same deck. So like I said, this game turned me into a card gamer. I've played countless card games, different card games, over the last almost decade now, and none of them are like Tekken Card Tournament. Of course, I've played card games that are better than Tekken Card Tournament. I've played several, but nothing scratches that itch. Nothing is exactly the same. I don't know if it's seeing these 3D models fight when you press that attack button, or just the Tekken branding, or what. Tekken Card Tournament is just so different, and it's not available. I talked about this previously in my last mobile game video. Please stop this video and watch that one if you haven't seen it. But Seven Swords is one of those games that just instantly evokes a wave of nostalgia over me. Everybody has that weird game they played as a kid that kind of shaped their tastes. I actually have a few of those, but one of the standouts of course is Seven Swords. Even to this day, even though they've been common and available for a long time, that word combination, mobile MMO, just sounds so futuristic. You mean to tell me that not only are mobile games 3D now, not only do they have simultaneous multiplayer, but now we can play with dozens of players at once and have these big skirmishes and clan battles all from the comfort of my iPhone 5? That doesn't even seem real. Well, let me not make it sound like peaches and rainbows. The game was average at best, the performance was very, very poor, and those big skirmishes and clan battles, the rubber banding was on a different level. But the sad part is that wasn't even the worst problem Seven Swords had. If you're the type of person who would click on this video and watch this far in, you probably already know that mobile games have some of the worst, most predatory monetization in any games ever. The top grossing games will always be dominated by soulless cash grabs, filled with premium currency, paywalls, and timers. I don't know if mobile games created that two currency system most games have, or the stamina system, or any of the other countless systems perfectly designed to trick you into spending money. I don't know if they made them, but they definitely pushed them to the mainstream. So even though Seven Swords had pay to win mechanics, I didn't pay attention to it. Really, the best part about the game was the community. Never have I ever experienced such a friendly, such an interesting, such an inviting, such a fun community on a mobile game. I would literally spend hours under the covers in the global chat just cracking jokes, talking. It was beyond fun. Go ahead and say it with me, Seven Swords is no longer available. Seven Swords Second, the sequel, is even harder to find info on. I don't know if I've mentioned it yet, but even just finding info on some of these games is legitimately tough. Most of the companies that made these games don't have Wikipedia pages or social media pages or websites or whatever things you usually need to run a company. Outside of their App Store page, a lot of these companies have no presence online. That's why I'm only talking about a select few games. And since I'm talking about games released in the 2010s, before recording mobile games was easy and accessible, most of the gameplay looks awful. So bear with me. But from what I was able to tell, Seven Swords Second was released in January 2017 and got a name change to Ultimagia and was closed probably in 2018. Okay, look, it's easy to sit here and list off delisted games and talk about how good they were, but why are these games getting delisted like this? To be honest, it could literally be any number of reasons, but here's a few ones that we run across the most. For licensed games, like the surprisingly fun Suicide Squad game or so many of the Angry Birds games, the license simply expires or the developer refuses to renew it, or both. Either way, the game is gone. Obviously, it is way more complicated than that, but I'll let somebody more knowledgeable teach you. This isn't just a problem exclusive to mobile games either. If you've been gaming since the Xbox 360 dashboard looked like this, really showing my age with this one, you probably have your own fair share of games that you love that got delisted. For me, it was that Scott Pilgrim game for a long time and Marvel vs. Capcom 2. So we run into licensing issues a lot, but in addition to that, as the phones start to get stronger and stronger hardware and they get firmware updates and things like that, those older games are no longer supported on the new hardware. This is probably one of, if not the biggest reason why most of the mobile games are no longer available. That sounds pretty reasonable though, right? But plenty of developers have proved that it's far from impossible. I won't say it's easy, but it is not impossible to keep these games updated for newer systems. One company I'll highlight in particular is Donut Games. If you love classic mobile games with a simple objective, then please look into purchasing some of Donut Games' catalog. Almost every game they've released is still available, and they're still releasing new games to this day. Make sure to check them out. Now, Donut Games is a much smaller company than something like Gameloft or especially Epic. So why can't they keep their games updated? Well, for one, the online servers. Keeping a very simple single-player game with basic graphics updated for modern phones is one thing, but the Infinity Blade series and many of Gameloft's own games had online functionality. Most of them weren't anything too crazy. They did have some online multiplayer offerings, but a lot of the stuff was just event quests, leaderboards, simple stuff like that. But even though it may sound simple to remove those unnecessary features like the leaderboard, they're baked deep in the code. So Epic or Gameloft or whoever else has to either modify the original code if they even still have it, or rebuild the game from scratch. Why spend money, manpower, and time on that when you could put a quarter of the effort into making a few skins for Fortnite or whatever cash grab Gameloft has? Why not just get the easy money instead? That's what they do every time. Now look, I understand, alright? Not everything can be perfectly preserved forever. Even though they're starting to get recognized, mobile games were, and honestly they still are, considered disposable. They're nothing, cheap throwaway pieces of entertainment. It isn't feasible economically, and the manpower isn't there to ensure every game is perfectly preserved for future hardware. That's fine, but no attempt is being made whatsoever to preserve these unique experiences. A franchise that Epic stated was one of their most profitable at one time is not playable outside of a few small Fortnite game modes that don't even represent it properly. Some of the best RPGs, the best action games, the best racing games, the best fighting games are no longer available whatsoever. But I have hope though. Gaming is doing a lot of things wrong now, like a lot. But the preservation effort has been very nice to see. Many games and series that were stuck on consoles for years and decades are finally making it to the current generation. I never would have thought we would see a Batten Kaitos port, a Xenoblade Chronicles X port, or a Super Mario RPG remake. We got all of them within a 2-year time span, along with many others. So this video is to raise awareness because I want to see a similar treatment given to mobile games. As of right now though, mobile games are too disposable. Whew, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching to the end of the video. I appreciate everybody that's tuned in today. I do apologize for how long it took for this upload. I know. I think this is as good of a time as any to announce I'm a writer. My first book, Iconoclast, is finished, and right now just working on some things in the background, distribution, things like that. I want to figure out how to get it out to everyone, but get hyped. You're going to see some Iconoclast things on the page soon, some trailers and some things like that, so look for that. More consistent uploads. We're going to get back to a schedule or something like that. I really want to drop 2 or 3 times a week. I don't know how I can do that, but, well, actually, I do know how I can do that. Everyone, if you're still watching this, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, click the notification bell to get notified when I upload new videos. Check that community tab. I'm always dropping polls in there. And please drop a comment. What do you want to see next? I make these videos for you all, so I want to make something that you all want to see too. So for now, I'll ask you to do 2 things for me. Watch more anime. Man, play more video games too.